Hello class, today we're learning how to solve equations that have distribution in them. So we're solving equations with distribution. The essential question is, how do I solve equations with distribution? Learning intention. I am learning to solve equations by using the distributive property. You've got 4 warm-up questions. Pause the video and see if you can do them on your own. I hope you tried. If you didn't, you don't know if you're learning the concepts or not. By pausing the video and thinking the problems out, you learn. So, as I'm looking, I need to move the 11 to the other side to get the 9x by itself. I've added 11. The opposite is to subtract 11. I've eliminated it from the first side. 9x is equal to negative 7 plus negative 11. They're both negative, so you add them together. 7 plus 11 is 18. Keep the negative sign. Okay, last step. I've multiplied by 9. The opposite is to divide by 9. And x is equal to negative 2. If you're still not understanding the process, back the video up and listen again. For the next one, I've taken r divided by 20, then I subtracted 5. You start with what happened last. You've subtracted 5. How do we undo subtracting 5? Well, that's by adding 5 to both sides. Okay, negative 4 plus 5. They're opposite symbols, so I subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1, and it's positive because 5 is positive. Okay, I've taken r and I've divided it by 20, and I get 1. How do I undo dividing by 20? Or maybe you know the answer now. What number divided by 20 gives me 1? Well, multiply by 20 on both sides. And 20 is equal to r. Any questions? Okay, for the next two. Negative 6, I've taken x divided by 4 and then added negative 6. Well, what was the last thing I did? Well, the last thing I did was to add negative 6. How do I undo adding negative 6? Adding positive 6. Negative 6 plus positive 6 is 0. I've eliminated it. X divided by 4 is equal to. They're opposite signs, negative 5 and positive 6, so I subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. I keep the positive because 6 is bigger than 5. I've taken some number, divided it by 4, and I end up with 1. Maybe you know the answer right now. What number divided by 4 gives me 1? Well, the answer would be 4. To show the math, though, we multiply both sides by 4 because we've divided by 4. And x is equal to 4. For the last one, I've taken f, multiplied it by 2/3, added 5, and I ended up with negative 17. How do I undo what happened last? Well, I've got to get this variable by itself. I've added 5. The opposite is to subtract 5 from both sides. So I've eliminated the 5 on this side. Positive 5 minus 5 is 0. I've zeroed it out. 2/3 of f is equal to, okay, negative 17 and negative 5, they're both negative, so I add them together. 17 plus 5 is 22. Keep that negative sign. Now, what do I multiply 2/3 by to get 1? Because I want 1f. You multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is where you turn the fraction upside down. 3/2 times 2/3 gives me 1. So I've got f on this side. Okay, if I'm looking, I see a 2 and a 22. I know that 22 is divisible by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 22 divided by 2 is 11. If you don't remember how to do that, go ahead and multiply the top and then divide by the bottom. Negative 11 times 3 is negative 33. And we're done. So those are types of problems that we have been working on learning how to solve. You use the same technique every time. You're undoing what happened last. If it's adding, you subtract. If it's subtracting, you add. If it's multiplying, you divide. If it's dividing, you multiply. You use the inverse or the opposite operation to solve. Now, when we throw in a little bit of distributing, it's still the same, but we have to remember to distribute and simplify both sides before we go any further. So this is a negative 4. It has to distribute to both terms in my parentheses. For the first one, I'm going to write it all out so you see what happens. You start off with negative 4 times 3. That's the first term. Plus negative 4 times 4k equals 52. This is what distributing means. You multiply everything inside your parentheses by what is outside. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 4 times 4k is negative 16k. Or you could put plus negative 16k. Either way works. Is equal to 52. Next step. I need to get my variable by itself. I've got negative 12 minus. The opposite of a negative 12 is a positive 12. Negative 12 plus 12 is 0. I've eliminated it from that side. Negative 16k is equal to 64. Now, at this point, if you're going to use a calculator, that's great, because I have to divide both sides by negative 16. If you don't have a calculator, that's fine too. 64 divided by 16. Okay, I know it can't go 5 because that would give me 30 plus 50, which is 80. So can I do 4? 4 times 6 is 24. Carry my 2. 4 times 1 is 6, so that is 64, and that is the correct answer. But remember, it's a negative, so k is equal to negative 4. You can always do the math yourself and then check. 64 divided by negative 16 is equal to negative 4. So I know I've got the correct answer. I can also always sub it back in up here and check that way too. Okay, pause the video. See if you can do the distributive part on your own. Can you distribute 3 to both terms inside? Okay, 3 times 4b is 12b. 3 times positive 1 is 3. 12b plus 3 equals 51. Next step, I've taken b multiplied by 12, then I added 3. The last thing I did was to add 3. How do I undo it? Subtract 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. I've zeroed it out. $12b is equal to 48. Last step is to divide by 12. B is equal to 4. So if you wanted to check, you could put 4 in here and you'd have 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 more is 17. 17 times 3 is 51. Okay, pause the video and see if you can do the first step on your own. Can you distribute? If nothing else, just draw the lines to show you where you need to distribute. I hope you tried. So both of my terms get multiplied by 7. Negative 168 is equal to 7 times 4v is 28v minus 7 times 4 is 28. We've completed that first step. Now, you want to get the variable by itself. That's your goal. Get this variable by itself. I've subtracted 28. What's the opposite? To add 28. Okay, these are opposite signs, so I've got to subtract. These have canceled out. 160 minus 168 minus 28 is 140, and it's going to be negative because the negative number is the larger base. Is equal to 28v. Last step, divide both sides by 28. 28 divided by 28 is 1. That gives me 1v on this side. Okay, negative 140 divided by 28 gives me negative 5. So negative 5 is equal to v. Okay, if you've not tried one yet, this time you really need to try to start it on your own. If you can't start it on your own, you need more practice and we need to talk. So pause the video and start it on your own. I hope you tried. 3 gets distributed to both. Okay, negative 111 is equal to 3 times 7 is 21, followed by x. I almost put a v there, but it's an x. Minus 3 times 2 is 6. Now, our goal is to get our variable by itself. I have subtracted 6. The opposite is to add 6. I've canceled it out here. These are opposite signs. So I'm going to subtract. 111 minus 6 is 105. And it's negative because the negative is bigger. 21 is equal to 21x. Last step is to divide by 21. And I can tell you right now it's going to be 5 because 20 goes into 100 5 times, and then you'd have that other 5. So 105 divided by 21 is 5. We know it's a positive divided by a negative, so this is a negative 5 is equal to x. Okay, on the next two, we distribute, but then we also have to simplify both sides. This is where we're headed with the solving equations. Okay, make sure you always draw those lines until you get really, really good at this. Then you'll be able to do it quickly without worrying. Okay, negative 86 does not change. Is equal to 4. All that's written down because it's not changed. Positive 5 times positive 3n is positive 15n. Positive 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. Okay, next step is to rearrange and get your numbers together. Addition is commutative, which means order does not matter. Negative 86 is equal to 15n plus 4 minus 15. We have these numbers that we need to add together. So negative 86 is equal to 15n. 4 minus 15 is negative 11. Okay. Draw your line. Keep those columns straight. Make sure your numbers are under your numbers. Your variables are under your variables. I've subtracted 11. The opposite is to add 11. I've eliminated it there. Negative 87 plus 11. I have to subtract their opposite signs. 86 minus 11 is 75. Keep that negative sign. Is equal to 15n. Last step. Divide by 15. Negative 75 divided by 15 gives me negative 5. So negative 5 is equal to n. Okay, pause the video again and see if you can start the next one on your own. If you can start it on your own, you know you're starting to understand. What does distributing look like in this case? Okay. Hope you tried. 46 is equal to 3 times r is 3r. Plus 3 times 6 is 18. I've distributed the 3, now I have to distribute the 5. 5 times r is 5r, so it's plus 5r. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 20. Now we're going to rearrange and get the numbers by themselves and the variables by themselves. Addition is commutative, which means order does not matter. 46 is equal to 3r plus 5r plus 18 plus 20. Combine like terms. 46 is equal to 3r plus 5r is 8r. 18 plus 20 is 38. So it's 8r plus 38. Now we're ready to solve. Okay, I've added 38. I need to get my variable by itself. So I'll subtract 38 from both sides. I've eliminated it on one side. 46 minus 38 is 8. 8 is equal to 8r. At this time, you should know what the answer is. 8 times what gives me 8 back? Well, that's 1. But the math is to divide both sides by 8. And 1 is equal to r. Okay, we've got 2 more to do. Pause the video and try them on your own. The only way you know if you're learning or not is if you try to do things on your own and then check your answer. So go ahead and pause the video. Well, I hope you tried. So I'm going to distribute the 6. I've got 78 is equal to 6 times negative 6a is negative 36a. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. Okay, I've distributed. Now what? Well, what is the opposite of subtracting 30? Is to add 30. I want to get this variable by itself. Okay, 30 plus 78 is 108 is equal to negative 36a. The opposite of multiplying is to divide. So I divide by negative 36. (108) divided by negative 36. Whoops. 108 divided by negative 36. I get negative 3. Negative 3 is equal to a. If you haven't paused yet, please, please, please pause on the last one and try it on your own. Well, I hope you tried. We've got to distribute the negative 2. So, negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 2 times negative 5, negative times negative is a positive. 2 times 5 is 10, followed by your x. Bring down the is equal to negative 68. That part has not changed. Okay, if I need to get my 10x by itself, I've got negative 8 attached. What is the opposite of negative 8? Positive 8. So, negative 60, it's eliminated here. 10x is equal to negative 60 plus 8. They're opposite signs, so I subtract. 68 minus 8 is 60. I look back. This number is the larger one, so it's minus 60. Last step is to divide by 10. X is equal to negative 6. So if you're still struggling, back the video up and watch it again and think about the processes. You know you're successful when you can solve any equations that require the distributive property. So this is focus on the distributive property.